Good morning, everyone. Dobro jutro svima iz Skopje. Thank you for joining the Roadmaps conference. I'm really excited to be part of this conference and really excited to meet all of you because I know that we're probably all similar people because we are all thinking in products, problems, and solutions. And today, what I will walk you through is the product alchemy. And what I consider product alchemy is basically the solving of human problems in a human-centered way. So I'll start my presentation. I'll start the presentation with these three buzzwords: agile, lean, and design thinking. I know you're all familiar with these words, so I won't go into details. I won't speak about the agile principles or the lean methodology, or I won't walk you through the design thinking phases. But we'll speak today about one thing that these three buzzwords actually have in common. If you think a bit wider, all of these three methodologies, frameworks, or solution frameworks have the same thing in common, and that is that they are all labels for the human-centered approach. But what does it mean to practice or to have a human-centered approach towards problems? It means that we are always putting the people first. We're always putting the people's emotions, desires, experiences first when we're thinking how we can solve their problems. So that is one thing that many of the companies are actually practicing now, even the most iconic companies that we all know. So as you can see, we have at the bottom of the slide some of the most popular companies that are using this human-centered approach, and those are Airbnb, Apple, Microsoft, Pepsi, Samsung, Uber, and many others. These companies are using the human-centered approach not just for building new products, but also for improving their current business processes, for rebuilding some of their existing products, and also for developing a lot of new products and services. We're all aware of their results, so I believe that the human-centered approach is something that every company should have in mind when they're thinking in terms of solving human problems. But what is actually the essence of this human-centered approach, right? We need to understand what is the essence in order to understand how we can practice this human-centered approach. If I need to explain it to the most simple steps, I would say that this approach actually is consisted from three main components. The first component would be empathy. We can never actually build products for people if we don't have empathy for them. I mean, we can, but then would those products be successful if we don't have empathy for the users that we are building the product? Probably not. So the first step or the first component that we need to have in mind is always having empathy for our users, or understanding how our users feel and think when they are actually having that problem or need that we would like to satisfy. The second component would be the co-creation. Why the co-creation? Because probably we were all taught that the product manager or the product designer is the one that should come with the solution for the problem. We have seen many times that the designer is, the expectations actually from the designer is that he should think of everything in terms of what we'll build as a product. Or the product manager should have all the ideas about solving the problem that we would like to solve. But we're saying no to that, because the human-centered approach means that we are building products for people, but also people are building those products. So that's why we need to always co-create with our team members, having different perspectives, different point of views in order to have the best value from the solution that we'll decide it will be the best solution. And the last component will be definitely iteration, or iterating. What it means to iterate, of course, we need to decide what we will build, but constantly revisit what we have decided it will be the perfect solution, because you know that perfect solutions actually don't exist. So if we constantly adopt that mindset that we need to iterate, it means that we'll build, revisit that, correct that. If we understand that something is not as we were expecting to be, again, go in circle, remind us why we are doing this, for whom we are doing this, have the empathy in mind, again, use the co-creation process and iterate. So the essence of the human-centered approach would be definitely these three components. And now we'll do a small design experiment. I hope you're all in the mood for this. It won't take too much time, but actually I'll name a problem and I'll ask you to help me design a solution for this problem of mine. It's not a big problem, so don't worry. It's a small problem. So I will share one thing that you must know about me personally is that I'm a very passionate coffee lover. So my problem is that I don't have a very nice cup for coffee. And every day I'm thinking I must buy some coffee cup that will be the perfect fit for me, that I really enjoy having my coffee from. So I will now ask you, I will share a mural link actually in the chat, and I will ask you to use your brain just to maybe to wake up our brains as a small icebreaker and to draw with the drawing tool in the mural, or to write a few words how you imagine that the perfect coffee cup would look like for me. So give me a second just to share the mural link in the chat. I've just shared the link. And if you haven't used mural so far, you'll be also able to view it as a visitor, but also to edit on the mural. I can see some people joining, great. Okay, I can also show the mural here. So yeah, as you can see, I've added a few empty boxes, so you can pick one and just put something that will come first on your mind and you think it will be the perfect coffee cup for me. If it's too much for you work to use just the pen, the drawing tool. If it's too much work for you, you can also use the stickies. I've added some colorful stickies at the top, so you can use those and put a few words, how you think that the perfect coffee cup would look like. I can also add the private mode in order to feel better when you're designing. And I'll add just this. Yeah, I can add 5 minutes timer. Maybe we'll need less, but yeah, just let's have 5 minutes to see how you think in terms of coffee cups. If it's hard for you to draw, feel free to add the stickies, just a few words. Just say it will be big, small, white, yellow, red, I don't know what you prefer. Maybe I'll shorten the time in order to be more effective. But if anyone wants to, yeah, I think that 3 minutes are enough. Or should I leave it 2 more minutes? Okay, I'll leave the 2 minutes. Okay. Yeah, that's it. I want now. Should I probably, yeah, and private mode. Yes. Okay, so let's see what we have. I must admit, I really love this 1 liter. It will do the work. Black coffee cup, I like it. Mid-size, ceramic material, with handle, vibrant color. Coffee is my first love. Definitely will do the thing. Let's see this one. Large funnel shape, changing color with heat. And it should be morning and sunny. Coffee strong, big, nice. I like this approach. Okay, we have questions instead of solution. Way to go. Cup from the Beauty and the Beast. Wow, yeah, I really love that one. Great. So thank you. Thank you for your effort. Now I'll be back to my presentation. Actually, what I just did, I've asked you for a solution, but did I tell you my need or what is my problem? Yeah, I've told you that my problem is that I don't have a cup of coffee, or I don't have a coffee cup actually. But is that my real problem? Probably no. And probably I didn't give you too many details about what is my actual need and why I need the perfect coffee cup for me. So if I go to the next slide, where I'll share maybe some experiences that I have or in which circumstances I'm having my coffee, probably it will give you more insights about what will be the perfect coffee cup for me. So maybe if I just told you that I'm enjoying my coffee cup while meditating in the morning, or some days I'm just having my coffee while making a plan for the day, going through my emails, going through the Teams chats. Some days I'm already deep into my work, so I'm even forgetting that I didn't have coffee, so I'm afterwards starting to prepare my coffee. And some days, probably for the weekends, I'm actually enjoying my coffee while having my delicious breakfast. So if I only told you these few situations or these circumstances that I'm actually using to enjoy my coffee, probably it would be a better prompt for the solutions that I've asked you. So what we want to achieve actually as product people is not to build products that users are asking for, but we need to build products by providing a better experience actually for the users that have some kind of need or some kind of problem. So what I should have done is actually I should have asked you to help me design a better way to enjoy my coffee. Maybe the coffee cup wouldn't be the problem, right? But you would have suggested maybe some better way to enjoy my coffee, because currently I'm not enjoying my coffee and I think it's due to the coffee cup. But how do we turn people's experiences into a product? We know that it's very different when we speak about a strict problem that is very obvious or a pain point. But when we think of people experiences, how they think, how they feel when they're facing this problem or this need, actually it's a bit different. Where do we start? First, of course, we need to identify the correct user need. But beside the user need, we also need to have in mind the business goal. because at the end of the day, we're building products that should bring money on the table, right? We're not building products just because. So we need to have a match between the business goals and the user need, but we also need to have in mind the technical constraints. So if what we want to build is feasible and can be done by the development team. So once we match these three things, and once we are aware of the business goal that we want to achieve and the accurate user need that we want to satisfy, and we have in mind the technical constraints that we know, then we'll know actually what we should build. But let's start from the beginning. Let's first see how we can define the appropriate user need that we want to satisfy. When we're speaking about user needs and problems, probably all of you have been through a lot of courses, books, etc., and you all know that it's not so simple and easy when we say we need to define. Yes, at first point, we can actually think that we have identified the user need. But because it's not that simple, we can see how we can do that better when we're building products. So for my presentation today, I've chosen a group of solo travelers that will kind of observe them and take some conclusions from their situation. And this will be our target audience for today. The business goal, we can define it as we want to improve the experience of solo travelers. Maybe we are some airline company that we have figured out that these solo travelers that are traveling frequently are the ones that are mostly complaining about everything, or maybe we have just figured out that they are the ones that are bringing the biggest value for our company, or the biggest money, the biggest revenue. So the goal would be that we want to improve the experience of these solo travelers. So now we need to identify the real user need. What is the problem? How we can improve this experience? We need first to empathize. We said the empathy is the first component of the human-centered approach. So how we will empathize with this target audience? Many people are mixing sympathy and empathy. We know it's very different. Sympathy, and when we feel sorry about someone. We don't feel sorry for these people. We know that they are having probably a good time while traveling and going to different cities and countries, but we need to understand also their situation and their point of view. So how we will do that? First, we'll start with some assumptions that we have. I've put here some of my assumptions, some things that I think that is correct while I'm observing this target audience. So I'm just wondering why this first guy is having an empty look. It seems like something is bothering him. The lady next to him, I'm wondering how long she's traveling, for how long. And also she doesn't seem very comfortable in her clothes. The third guy, then we can see he's checking something on his phone. I'm wondering what he's checking, if he's checking the weather forecast or his emails, or he's looking for some networking events. The other two ladies, the one, it seems like she wants to look good. She's preparing maybe to read something on the flight. The other one seems like a mom worried that she's leaving her kids at home. And the last guy, I'm just wondering why he's keeping the laptop on his shoulder, why he doesn't put his laptop next to him. And also some of the other observations that I can see here, they will have hand luggage with them. So I'm assuming that they're traveling only for 2 or 3 days maybe, and they've also all chosen the bright side of the airport, which probably means something. But in order to confirm if this really means something, and if my assumptions are really accurate, we need to do a proper discovery. So when we say a proper discovery, we mean we want and we have to actually speak with our target users directly. We need to do some interviews, to do some surveys, to understand their point of view, to understand their stories. So my tips about building empathy or empathizing with your target users would be, first, to find stories. Speak with your users and try to find the stories that they would like to tell. Most of the people want to tell stories. They want to tell how they were in a rush before they arrived at the airport, or they want to tell a story how successful they are and how many meetings they will have, and the revenue that they will gain to the company, etc. So try to find those stories, because it will provoke people to tell you more. And while looking for those stories, focus on emotion. Don't forget the emotion, because people sometimes are saying one thing, but in the background of their mind, they're thinking something else. And the emotion that we'll notice, it will tell us much more than what the users are saying. So while listening to those stories, actually try to focus on the emotion that the users are showing or not showing. Maybe they're frustrated, maybe they're really happy, they're really excited that they have this opportunity to travel, but it's up to us to understand their emotions and to recognize them. How we will do that? In the most simple way. Just keep asking why and keep listening what your users are saying. Don't rush into suggesting them something or saying, yeah, I know, etc. But just keep asking why. It will give you much better overview to understand their circumstances and their points of view. So now, let's say we have confirmed some of our assumptions, and we have heard what they're doing, if what I thought in the first place was correct or it wasn't. So now let's just figure out what the real problem is here. On the left side, I'm adding the confirmed assumptions, and on the right side, you can see the need that I have identified. So for example, the first guy, he's just thinking on the charger he forgot at home. What is the real need here? He just needs convenience and access to resources. He's worried that when he's traveling alone, if he forgot something, then that will be a problem because he won't have access to his mobile phone. He won't find the place or the hotel where he's situated. So that's why we're identifying this as a need. The second lady, we mentioned she's questioning her outfit. So maybe her need or her problem is the lack of confidence and self-assurance. The third guy, actually, he was just hungry and just looking for a good restaurant. So he has a desire for an enjoyable dining experience. And also we can see for the other 2 or 3, yes, they have a need for social acceptance and recognition, emotional connection, responsibility. So although they belong to the same target audience, they have different needs. But these are the most obvious needs that we can identify while speaking to our users. While we are in this situation, we must stop and ask ourselves, is this the real need that we want to satisfy? If that is the case, probably we'll need to do different products for these people. For the first one, maybe it will be something that will be related with the access to resources. For the second lady, maybe some, motivational podcasts or something like that. For the third guy, some application with restaurant suggestions or something related to the city where he is going, etc. But what they all have in common and what will be here the deeper need. If we analyze what we have identified as their needs and what we have heard as their stories and their emotions, probably we'll understand that the deeper need here is actually that these solo travelers feel lonely and isolated and lack support and safety that a partner or a colleague would give them. So this is actually the real need that we need to satisfy. So my advice is, while looking for the real problem, would be to look at what are the fundamental issues and not just pay attention at the most obvious pain points, and focus on curing the fundamental issues, not the symptoms. What we are seeing here as needs at the upper part actually are the symptoms. They are bored, they don't have someone to talk with, so that's why they are thinking or questioning their outfit, they're thinking on the charger, etc. So when you're looking for the real problem, just focus on what is the fundamental issue and focus on curing those fundamental issues. Okay, now we can say we've identified the real problem, so we know what we need to solve. How we will solve it? There is the perfect solution that we can come up with immediately. So the process must go with gathering ideas. Ideas. Why I'm saying this? Because as one of the Nobel Prize winning authors says, the best way to have a good idea is actually to have lots of ideas. But how we will get many ideas? sometimes, although we are product people who are thinking always in product solutions, we cannot come up with many ideas, right? Or we are just so tied to the first idea that we get, so we believe that's the perfect idea, and our mind, we don't allow our mind to actually go further and to explore our ideas. That's why the first thing that I will say here is, don't think the best idea should come only from you. You know that famous saying, like the product manager is the mini CEO of the company? Well, forget that. Even if we consider if it's the mini CEO of the company, it doesn't mean that all the decisions or all the ideas should come from this mini CEO of the company. That's why I'm always suggesting, include your team members in the ideation process. You never know from whom the best ideas will come. That's why while we are solutioning what we want to build, or while we are coming up with the ideas, we need to have different perspectives, different roles, because I think that in that way we'll have the biggest value and will probably come with the best idea when we have many, many ideas from which we can choose. And the last advice I will say here is, don't overthink your ideas. Sometimes the most simple solution would be the best solution for our users. And on this last point, I will tell you a brief story. Maybe some of you are already familiar with this story, but anyway, I will just tell it if you are not. This is the story about the stuck truck. There was one very tall truck that wanted to pass under a bridge, but he got stuck. It was too tall, and although the driver considered that he can pass under the bridge, it got stuck. So that caused even bigger problems, because there was a lot of traffic and no one was able to pass under that bridge anymore. So many people have gathered together to understand how they can solve this big problem. There were a lot of engineers, mechanics, emergency workers, police officers, even other truck drivers, that all of them were thinking how they can solve this problem, and they all provided different solutions, very different solutions. But everyone was thinking from their point of view, and actually they provided solutions that were pretty complex and would have taken a few hours just to remove the truck from the main road. And then one young boy was just passing there, and he saw all the people there standing and discussing, and he just said, okay, what's the problem, what you're discussing? And they've told him that the truck is stuck and they really don't know what to do because it will take a few hours to remove from there. And he said just, and why don't you let the air out of the tires? Then the truck will not be that tall and it will be easily pushed after the bridge. They all stopped and couldn't believe that that was the most simple and the most obvious solution, but none of them has remembered that this could be a potential solution of the problem. So next time when you will be doing the ideation process, when you will have a lot of ideas, or you won't be so creative and you won't remember, or you won't be inspired to provide some good looking ideas for your problem or for the user's problem, just think of this story, that sometimes the most simple solution would be the best fit for our users. And now, how to choose the best idea? Now we've identified the correct problem, the right problem. We have lots of ideas. We've included our team members, and how we can choose the best idea. First, we'll do some affinity mapping. Let's try to find some patterns between the ideas that everyone has provided and see if they have something in common, if they can be grouped into one space and just have it as one general idea about that specific topic. Then do some voting with the team. Use again the team because, as we said, they have different perspectives. So do some voting on the ideas that you have identified as ideas that will solve the customer's problem. And then choose the idea or the ideas that have the biggest potential. How we will do that? We're coming to that space where it's all or nothing. I'm always suggesting that when we're in that space, when we need to decide what is the best idea at that moment, we need to go back to the problem statement. We need to think if these ideas or if this idea answers our how might we questions in a satisfying way. When we're thinking to the how might we statements about our solo travelers, we can see that we're wondering if how might we help solo travelers to feel supported and safe for their journey, or how we can create personalized experience for them, or how we can develop a platform that will connect them and provide them better experience while they are solo traveling. So when we connect the ideas with biggest potential and we confirm that they are answering our how might we questions, then we're on the right track. Afterwards, just think of these three things. There are different methods on how you can proceed and choose the best idea, but my suggestions would be these three things. Think if it's feasible, think if it brings value to your users, and think if it brings value to your company. Again, if you remember what we said, where we are starting when we are thinking about human-centered approach, we have the empathy in mind, we have the co-creation process, and we need to have in mind that we'll be constantly iterating. So even if we haven't chosen the best idea, that doesn't mean that we're on the wrong path. It will take a little bit more time, but if we go with regular iterations and regularly iterating, then probably we will come to the best solution for our users. And the last piece, of course, will be ask for feedback as early as possible. Don't wait for the perfect functionalities. Don't wait for the perfect designs. Even when we have some sketches or very low fidelity wireframes, it will be the perfect moment to gather some feedback from our users, to ask them what they think, to see how they are reacting to what we want to build. So the first advice, of course, is to create prototypes to evaluate our concepts. Second advice would be pay attention to what your customers are saying frequently. You know, they will be saying different things, but if we find a pattern of something that has been said a few times while our testing with the users, then definitely that will mean something. Next thing that I will say is focus on your customers, not on your competitors. Of course, as product people, we need to do market research and competitor analysis. But sometimes we're so becoming blind because we're focusing on what our competitors have and we want to beat up them and have better functionalities than them, that we're just forgetting about your users and we're focusing on the competitors. So don't do that. Just focus on your customers and listen what they have to say. The last piece of advice would be to be ready to iterate and adjust your product strategy as many times as you have to. There's no one that has built a perfect product at the beginning, actually, when they started. So there are no perfect ideas, there are no perfect solutions. But if you accept that fact, and if you are ready that we can accept failure, it will speed up things and it will help us to provide the best solution after a few iterations. So I will end today's presentation. I think we're mostly on time. I'll end my presentation just with one thing that I would like to share with you, and that is that no matter in which role you are, if you're a product manager, product owner, QA analyst, software engineer, or some other role, don't forget that at the end of the day, we're actually just people building products for other people. If you have this in mind always, I'm sure that you will do just fine. So thank you for your attention. The last slide, I have also added my LinkedIn profile, so feel free to connect. I will be really glad to hear how your product development process is going. And if you have some questions or if you want to share something with me, feel free to connect with me. And now we have hopefully enough time for a few questions.
Thank you. So everyone who has any questions, feel free to type it in the chat or unmute and ask. And in the meantime, for everyone else, I would just leave you the form for feedback. It means a lot to us. Yeah, are there any questions? And thank you, Olgica. It was an amazing lecture. Okay.
No questions. Everything was very clear.
No questions. Okay, maybe we can see what you guys actually thought about the lecture.
Thank you, guys. I'm really glad that you liked it.
Yeah, so here's some thoughts you had on the lecture. I also think it was lovely, inspirational. Yeah, insightful, very insightful.
I think I saw one question. I just lost the chat. Yeah, could you share a bit about the technique of gathering feedback? Feedback, in which phase do you mean gathering feedback after? Yes, probably after when we are using the prototypes, right? Yes. Okay. Yeah, and ideas also. Okay. So for the ideation process, actually for the discovery process, I always prefer the direct interviews because, as I mentioned in my presentation, when we have direct interviews, we can focus on the stories that people want to tell, and we can focus on the emotion that they are providing while speaking about their journey or their problem or their need. So I know there are different techniques, and also the surveys and different questionnaires can do the thing and will provide us with quantitative feedback. But what I find like most valuable is the feedback that we're getting from the direct interviews. And also what I have noticed as a pattern is that you don't need, because that was like my first challenge when I started doing interviews, is that you don't need to do like 100 interviews, because when you're speaking with people that are from the same target group, you will notice that after, I don't know, 10, 15 interviews maybe, you'll find easily a pattern of the need they have, and you'll notice they have pretty similar emotions while speaking about that problem or need. So yeah, for the discovery process, I'm preferring the direct interviews. And for the not for the ideation, but you said for the testing, for gathering feedback, what we use is like a matrix where we defined from the feedback what is like related to the functional part, actually first what they like, then what they didn't like, then what we can improve, and what they didn't understand. Like we're using that matrix, and afterwards from the feedback, I'd like to group the feedback. If it's related to the functional parts, if it's related strictly to the problem or the need, that means that we didn't understand probably something from the very beginning, or if it's related to how it's been designed. So yeah, just first gathering the feedback with that matrix. I can also share maybe some templates about that, and afterwards you can go to that.
There's also another question.
Yeah.
Which tools do you use during the discovery process?
For the bulk user feedback, actually, I think that we have just used some Google Forms. We haven't used something specifically because, as I said, what we prefer is actually the direct user interviews.
Okay, another one.
How do we calculate the price of the product while taking empathy into consideration? In other words, how do we know that the problem we're solving is important enough that users will pay for it? The lecture. Thank you, Yelena. How do we calculate the price? Another interesting topic that probably will need another conference or another talk to speak more. And also interesting that while I was preparing my presentation, I was thinking a lot about the price, but I thought that if I mentioned that, it will be like a very long presentation, so we won't have time to discuss about everything. But I would say that we leave the price at the beginning when we are doing the discovery process, when we are building empathy for our users, we are leaving the price aside, right? Because if we focus on the price, then we are starting with a different point of view, and that's why I suggest that first we need to identify the real need that the users have. And afterwards, after we identify the need, the problem, etc., we need to start thinking about the pricing, of course, also to have the business goal in mind. And when we're speaking about the pricing, also, I think that the best way to proceed is just to give suggestions to users for what they will be willing to pay, for what will satisfy their need, and but they are not willing to pay with specific numbers. Like, just give them some suggestions, and what they think it's too expensive, but they will pay in no matter what the price will be, because they really need a solution like that. It really depends about the problem that you are solving. It really depends on the target users, about their paying power, etc. So it's a very long and interesting topic.